You know the semicolon tattoos that people get for suicide awareness? It's the idea that, semicolon is a thought, then you place a semicolon, and then continue the thought, as opposed to a period that ends the thought.
It's a pause.
Yeah. So the semicolon is the symbol for someone who's attempted suicide. It didn't work. And now they're still alive. They're continuing on. In a way, recovery, to me, seems to be like that. There was a thought, a pause, and then a thought. It's still the same sentence. It's still the same person. Or is that not a fitting analogy?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is. Except for, it seems like, I mean, I'm only been in my recovery for a year, but it seems like it was somebody else's life. It seems like it was a lifetime ago. It happened to someone else, like it was a movie. So
it's more like the Christian concept of being born again.
Right. It
literally
seems like
being a different person.
It seems like it happened to somebody else. And I'm sure as time goes by, it'll get further and further away from my consciousness. Just like everything before our marriage of 12 years now, it seems like somebody else's life. It seems like something that happened to somebody else before that. Like it was a movie that I can play back in my mind. I know I was there. I know I lived it. But it just seems like it happened to somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with this.
In the Bible it says, Paul says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." If you look up the words, conformed literally means to take a substance and squeeze it into a shape. But transformed means to take that and make it something completely different. The idea of energy. All energy is moving into form, through form, and out of form. But the energy itself still exists. So it's like our spirits still exist, but our soul makes a different choice as to what to do with our body, what to do with our mind, how to become something different.
It's also the difference between what you do to somebody and what you do to yourself. You can try to force them into a box to conform, or you can transform yourself. You can't do both. You can't do both.
So by that thinking, what you're saying is you can't change anyone but yourself?
That's it. That's all you can do. The only person you can fix is you at any given time. Now, you can experience other people next to you. You can play like young children. Very young children, prior to the age of about 5, play next to each other. As they get older and older, they play with each other. And that's kind of how life goes. You can only play with yourself.
I'm enjoying this conversation more and more.
Next to somebody else, when you can only dictate and have your own experience next to the person next to you who is dictating having their own experience. It's like 2 small children in the sandbox. They're each having their own interaction with their toys. They're having their own fantasy, their own world. They're living in their own reality.
Wow.
Wow, it's next to the person next to them, but they're having a whole different experience.
When I was seriously drinking in my 20s, that describes it perfectly. I had a life, I had a world that I existed in, but that's not where I lived. I lived totally in my brain. And I was having completely my own little thing.
All the time. Me too. Yeah. I was an only child. And you essentially kind of were too. Well, I mean, your siblings were so much older than you that you were probably kind of an only child.
My parents had to revisit it later.
They were busy.
Get it right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just to geek out a little bit, I'm not a big science fiction person, but in the first episode, the pilot for Deep Space Nine, the Star Trek thing, and don't call them Trekkies, they hate that. I got kicked out of a Star Wars chat room. Not Star Wars.
No,
Star Trek. I got kicked out of a Star Trek chat room one time for saying that Richard Gere tribbles. I thought it was funny. Anyway, In that first pilot episode, the main captain, whatever his name was, he has some entity messing with his brain, trying to examine him. The entity ends up telling him, basically, that he doesn't live where he's living, that he lives somewhere else. And it's an event, a traumatic event that happened in his past. But the entity tells him, this is where you live. And it's in his mind. It's in his head. That's where I was. So then how do you wake up? How do you come out of that? How, developmentally?
Before we had this recording, we had another recording, and you said something about trying to hide from your emotions or stuff your feelings or not feel things, and that really is the gist of it.
Oh, that was totally what drinking alcohol was for me. I didn't want to feel.
That's what it is for everybody. There's something that you're trying to numb. Whatever experience that you're trying to numb, or just the thoughts in your head, or just the overwhelming hormonal situation of being an adolescent. Because a lot of times that's where this stuff starts.
Yeah. For me, I was an adult when I started drinking.
Recovery comes when you realize that you're the only one having this experience. You're the only one driving the ship. Where you care to steer it is where it's going to go. And by hiding from your emotions and stuffing your feelings into drugs or into alcohol, you are completely eliminating the point of the human experience. The whole point of coming here is to experience emotions on a raw level and navigate through every emotion and to experience life on an emotional level. That's the whole point, isn't it? To feel? And when you numb that, you miss the whole purpose. You miss the whole experience. You can't have a human experience without all the emotions that come with it. You can't, at the end of your life, go, I did it. I conquered every one of those emotions. I navigated my way through and I came out a healthy person on the other side of it. I'm okay. I can now meet my maker with some solidity, some kind of, look, I did all these terrible things while I was here, and I navigated my way through all of it. And in the end, I was a whole person, and I knew who I was, and I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Because really, that's all you can do, right? Is hope that at the end, you can just be there and just be naked and raw in front of God and just be who you are and be okay with that.
Yeah. Years ago, I had a vision of you and I, early on in our relationship, in the first few years. And I had a vision of you and I. I was holding your hand in the air. We were facing an open heaven. I could hear and see this incredible music flooding out of heaven. As these light waves, which were also sound waves, were hitting us, blowing against you and then around you. It's like you were being buffeted by it, and it was not a pleasant experience for you. It was flowing through me, creating more music that was just more dispersed, more light, more music after it went through me like a prism. And this is back when you were in your addiction. And I think that's kind of true. I think as we become more transparent, more open, then the light, the music, the experience, the emotion, the everything that makes us a spirit being is being amplified and going out to other places that it wouldn't go to. If I had that same vision today, I doubt whether it would be exactly the same. And I don't think it's a matter of you're this way one minute, you're that way the next minute. It might be. I think more it's a process. I think sometimes we make 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's my 2 cents.
I think a lot of it is coming to terms with your mortality also. In rehab, I heard a lot of people saying they were afraid to die. They thought they were going to die, and they were afraid to die. Or they lost somebody, and they were afraid of that happening to them. I didn't experience that. That was never my reason. I don't understand the fear of death. And that's a real controlling thing that the TV uses, that the government uses, is people's fear of death. And I don't have that. And so it was a little trickier for me. A lot of people find recovery in the fear of their own mortality. And I don't think that's necessarily a healthy way to do it, because that's inevitable. The way I see it is, I wasn't afraid before I was here. Why would I be afraid to go back to where I was before I was here when I wasn't afraid then? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So that was off the table. I had to find something bigger than that. Bigger than all of that. And my reasons were very petty, actually. The reason that I wanted, my motivation in the beginning was ridiculous, and nobody thought it was ever going to work or ever going to happen because of what my motivation was. And I kept telling everybody, who cares what my motivation is? I'm motivated right now. Roll with it. Just go with it.
Right.
Whatever my motivation is, who cares? It will eventually evolve into whatever it is you want me to say. Whatever puppeted thing, I'm sure I will be able to pair it to you. But right now, that's not how I feel.
Right.
Roll with that.
If it's an individual decision to make a change, it's an individual, say, bottoming out, to make a change, then why would the answer have to be a canned, conformed, cute?
I don't know.
This is now your answer. You now have it, and if you don't do well with it,
right?
I will judge you.
I asked for 3 solid months. I begged and begged and begged my counselors, please send me to rehab. I cannot do this on my own. I need help. I begged. And they kept saying, why? Why do you want to go to rehab? And I said, because I want to win. I know. That horrible bitch can't do it. I'm speaking of who is a lifelong meth user and could never and will never, can't ever do what I've done. And I know that in my heart. And that's why I did it, because I knew she couldn't and I wanted to win. Rah! And you know what? I did. A year ago, I did. I won. And now what? So I win. Great. Well, now I have to maintain winning. I have to continue to be on top of this. And I have to stay sober. That's still okay, because she still can't do it. And I still feel like the winner.
So what does that look like?
Sometimes it's hard. So far, I prefer to have... do the buddy system.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be triggering to be driving around by myself.
When I was drinking in my 20s, I drank and drove all the time. That was how I found peace, as sick and twisted as that is. After I stopped drinking, started going to church, started going to AA, made some serious changes, I didn't know what to do with myself. Because the only things I actually enjoyed, it took me a while.
Yeah. I've been lucky that there's been a lot of people around me that have been taking my sobriety so seriously enough that they're willing to drive around with me.
Yeah, we have been blessed in that certain key people made decisions to get their shit together right in the same couple of months.
Right at the same time, yeah.
And it has made a huge difference in this house. I mean, we have 4 generations of people in this house. It's noisy, it's chaotic, it's crowded, there's dogs underfoot, and it's an incredible blessing. For the most part, everybody's kind of pulling in the same direction.
Yes. Well, we're all off drugs now.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. The baby certainly helped.
Yeah. Well, she is perfect.
She is. I just think that people who are experiencing their addiction are trying to hide their feelings. My oldest son, who is chin deep in his heroin addiction right now, came to me last week and said, I do this because I don't want to feel anything. I want to hide my feelings, to which I told him, you're missing the whole point of the human experience.
Yeah.
By running from your feelings. That's why we're here, to experience the whole gambit of emotions. That's what brings you closer to God. That's where you can feel, that's how you make that connection.
Yeah.
That's how you know that you are of God. And without the human emotion, if you don't experience that, then you've missed the whole point.
Hearing you say that reminds me of something. I was 29 years old. I was at a gig. My band had played. The drummer had gotten kind of drunk before we played. And there was a band rule that we didn't do that sort of thing. I have always maintained that I don't want to play with people who are drunk or high. It's just not what I want to experience. I had a couple drinks, and the drummer was drunk enough that it was affecting the person's playing. not rip-roaring drunk or anything. My first wife was in the band. We were done with our portion, and the headliner was playing. We were outside the venue. My first wife was just blowing up to me about, why does this have to happen? Why does she have to drink like this? And I said, maybe she doesn't want to feel anything. Maybe she just can't take the pain of day-to-day life. Maybe she just doesn't want to feel. My ex-wife looked at me and said, how do you know this? And I said, because that's how I feel. That's what I think. And for the first time on my 29th birthday, hearing those words roll out of my mouth, it unlocked everything. It was about 5 weeks later that I quit drinking and had a vision of Jesus, and everything in life changed. But yeah, it was that revelation. Once I saw, oh, okay, well, at least I know why. Maybe now I can figure out how.
And here's the thing. For some people, the idea of feeling their feelings is absolutely frightening.
Oh, terrifying, yeah.
But it's so much scarier in your head than the reality of it. The reality of it is absolutely exhilarating. And you miss the whole ride. If you numb your feelings, you miss the whole point.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I was really struggling with how to get this off the ground. We're all just walking each other home.